Hi, I'm Brian. Kettle's on, make yourself a cup of tea. Today I want to talk about the news that Disney and Marvel have pushed back the release of Black Widow to next year. The movie was due out later this year, but have now got a release date in 2021. Now this news was released yesterday, and I'm reading it on the Verge website, and the article there says, Black Widow delayed until 2021, pushing back the Eternals and other Marvel movies. The first year since 2009 without an MCU movie. In a predictable fashion, Disney is delaying Black Widow to 2021 as the company continues to navigate the current theatrical landscape during the pandemic. This marks the first time since 2009 that Marvel's Cinematic Universe movie hasn't been released in a calendar year. Black Widow will now open on 7th of May 2021, more than 1 year after it was originally scheduled to be released. Like with other Marvel delays, Black Widow's new date pushes Shang-Chi The Legend of the Ten Rings back from its May 7th, 2021 release date to July 9th, 2021. The Eternals, which was supposed to follow Black Widow, is moving from February 12th, 2021 to November 5th, 2021. A number of other Disney films, including West Side Story, The Kingsman, were also moved around as part of the shuffle. Black Widow follows in Wonder Woman 1984's footsteps, which Warner Bros. Delayed to December 25th from an October 2nd release date, in hopes that more theatres would be open and audiences more likely to go. The delay comes after Tenet's lukewarm debut in the US, where it opened to just $20 million earlier this month, largely because theatres in major cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco and New York remain closed. Warner Bros. Sees Tenet's success as a long game, meaning executives want to wait several weeks before judging the movie's performance, instead of relying on just the first few weekends. Still, it's hard to ignore that the most expensive blockbuster film may not achieve the financial success many movie studios need right now. That doesn't bode well for other studios, especially huge moneymakers like Disney with high budgets and marketing spend. The House of Mouse has explored a few different options. While movies like Hamilton and Artemis Fowl went to Disney Plus as regular streaming exclusives, Disney also built a Premier Access digital purchase shelf within Disney Plus for Mulan. Disney Plus subscribers could pay an additional $30 to buy Mulan, a $200 million blockbuster originally destined for theatres, on top of their $7 monthly Disney Plus subscription fee to watch the movie. Or they could wait until December 4th when Mulan would become free to all Disney Plus subscribers. It's unclear just how well Mulan underperformed, but Disney Chief Financial Officer Christine McCarthy told a group gathered at the Bank of America Virtual 2020 Media Communications and Entertainment Conference last week that the company is very pleased with what it is seeing. Still, McCarthy and Disney team are committed to theatrical releases, especially heading into 2021. Now that is interesting because I know Disney were judging the success of Mulan on Disney Plus as to whether they were going to follow it up with releasing Black Widow on Disney Plus. And I can only assume that because they've decided not to do that and to push back a release date, that Mulan has underperformed and not brought in the revenue they were hoping for. Now obviously this could be with all the other stigma surrounding the Mulan movie, I don't know. Or it could be that people aren't in a situation where they can afford to pay an extra $30 on top of the subscription fee for a film, especially when later this year it's going to be released on Disney Plus for free anyway. But let's continue with the article. We've got a pretty robust slate through 2021, McCarthy said, as reported by Deadline. We hope theatres are open and we hope our films are people who choose to go to the movie theatres. The experience of going to a movie theatre is very different from what you would have home. That makes sense. Disney made $13 billion at the box office in 2019, thanks to part to Avengers Endgame. Disney is one of the few studios that can drive people to theatres, and it seemingly has no plans to release all of its $200 million blockbusters on Disney Plus as a Premier Access exclusive, especially if Mulan underperformed, which I can assume it has done, because if it had performed well on Disney Plus, I would assume this would be the route Disney would be taking. Until customers are ready to go back to theatres en masse, Disney is going to have to figure out which of its films it wants to save for theatrical releases in 2021 and which ones can go directly to streaming. In general, if you look at that research, you generally see that older people are less likely, McCarthy said, talking about who is more likely to go back to theatres. Probably younger people, the same people who are doing things we see on news that they probably shouldn't be doing, like crowding and partying. They're probably more likely to go to a theatre. But would a family with young kids go? Probably not. So that's the article. Disney has decided to push back Black Widow to 2021 in hopes that more movie theatres will be open. But there's also a question of will enough movie theatres in the US survive to still be open in 2021? I know a lot of them are struggling. They have been for a while due to everything that's happening with the pandemic and everything surrounding it. But it's not only Black Widow. Obviously, it's the Marvel has its cinematic universe, so it's going to have a knock-on effect for several years for the Disney films, especially if when Black Widow is due to be released, it still can be released and they decide not to go ahead with a Disney Plus release. The only reason I can think of that they haven't gone for the Disney Plus release is because Mulan did underperform doing it. Obviously, if the studio had made the money back for Mulan on Disney Plus, it would have pushed ahead with more releases for the $30 on Disney Plus. But that's not the case. I mean, the lack of the MCU movies in theatres will hurt Disney more this year again. I mean, it's lost a ton of money this year with its parks being closed for as long as they were, and who knows what the winter's going to bring. The MCU movies are always dead certain to bring in the crowds when they are released, regularly putting in $1 billion or close to that. So Disney can't have taken this decision lightly. It's going to need to pull back money for the money it's lost this year, and theatres need studios to start releasing more films in the theatres again to stand a chance at riding this out and still being able to open on the other side. But as it says, it's not just Disney doing this. Warner Brothers have also pushed back the release date of Wonder Woman to later this year. That'll be its second time it's been pushed back, and it could be pushed back even further until next year. We'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. But for now, we can only keep an eye on the situation, see how movie theatres are doing, if they are going to survive through this, which I don't think a lot of them will if studios aren't willing to release movies at the theatres. But obviously studios can't release movies at the theatres when it's not safe for them to do so. They are putting people's lives at risk if they did that, if they released a movie when it wasn't safe and everyone flocked to the cinema. So what do you guys think? Do you think Disney are making the right move pushing Black Widow back to next year? Because obviously this will have a knock-on effect with the MCU going forward. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. And that's all from me. I'm off to make a fresh cup of tea.